Another tool that you could actually use to do some SQL injection testing is a tool called SQLMap. Now, SQLMap is a tool that's actually written in Python, and as usual, we've got a lot of capabilities that the tool has. So if I look at the help, for example, I can see that there are a lot of different things that it can test for in a lot of different ways. I'm going to show you a couple of quick things here that you can use. So there's a couple of things. You can specify a URL that you want to look at, or you could actually specify a Google query. So let's take a look at the URL way of doing it first. So we're going to run SQLMap, and I'm going to specify that the URL in this case is the system that's on my local network. And I'm going to use one of the directories underneath the main directory. So I've got this tool, SQLMap. I'm actually running it against a website that's actually called Damn Vulnerable Web Application. And it's a web application that I've got installed on my system here. And we're going to check to see whether it's vulnerable to SQL injections. And so it's running a lot of tests, and you can see it's testing for various things. And what it's discovered here is that the parameters may not be able to be attacked in an injection fashion. So what I could actually do here is I could say level is 5 because I want to crank up the testing level that I'm doing. So it's going to do some more intensive testing than I had previously done, and we're going to do some different types of testing. You can see there's a lot more tests here going on now than we had previously looked at. And the reason for this is because some of these tests may be more risky than the basic one. So I've intensified the level. We're going to see whether we can actually get into this particular web application in this way. So it's running through a lot of tests for different databases, and I could do some specifications for what I actually wanted to test it to. I'm just going to run through everything at this point. Even though I know we're running like Microsoft SQL Server tests or Oracle tests, and it's really MySQL that's the database that's running behind the Damn Vulnerable Web Application. So you can see the level 5 actually does a lot of tests that we didn't before. And you can see here that it's telling me that I could specify that the database system is MySQL. So that would limit the number of tests that I'm doing. If you do happen to know what the database is, you can save yourself some time by specifying which database management system you're actually using. So we're running through a bunch of generic tests right now, and this actually could take some time, and I do want to show you the Google version. So I'm actually going to end it at that point. It's telling me based on what it's found that the parameter that it did find couldn't be injected into. So let's take a look at running SQLMap using the Google hacking. And in order to protect myself here, I'm actually just going to use my site. And I can do a Google dork like this. So I'm saying that the site is this one right here. I'm actually going to specify that. And I'm looking for PHP extensions. So it's going to run a Google query, and it's going to see what it can find for results from that. And then based on that, it will run SQLMap against those particular pages. And it turns out I don't actually have PHP pages there. Just for fun, let's try CGI instead. And we don't actually have anything there either, even though I could actually do something like this. I do have a blog site that's running WordPress, and I could do this instead. So for some reason, the blog isn't actually advertising any PHP pages. And so I could do the testing directly against the blog. As I said, it's running WordPress, and behind WordPress is a database. And this also is showing that the parameter that it did find might not be injectable, so we may not be able to get much of anywhere with this. But SQLMap is a pretty useful tool. You can see it does a lot of different testing against different SQL databases, and you can, of course, increase the level of intensity that you're testing against. You can increase the risk. You can do all sorts of different parameters and see whether you can actually get any results back and see whether it's something that you could perform SQL injection against. And if you can, it will actually do things like dump the database, get users, get a list of tables, get the databases that are involved. You can do a lot of different things with SQLMap.